They called it the Celestian High Council Hall, a vast chamber hewn from black stone that glittered beneath orbs of brilliant white light, each orb held aloft by intricate silver chains. It was said that those silver fixtures had been forged at the dawn of Celestian civilization, when the first starship departed the capital to explore the unknown corners of the galaxy. Within this grand hall, 12 elders, their skin a lustrous shade of pale silver, gathered in austere robes woven from delicate cosmic threads. Their eyes, each a swirl of opalescent color, carried the burden of millennia's wisdom. Tonight, their attention was fixed on a single question: the fate of Earth. No one spoke at first. The council members sat around the half-circular dais, etched with Celestian runes that spoke of cosmic balance. A hush fell as the head elder, an imposing figure known as Elder Veyer, lifted his gaze, letting it sweep across the assembly. The air was tense, charged by an almost electric quality that accompanied dire decisions. "It cannot be denied," Elder Veyer began, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "Earth's technological progress accelerates faster than even our best projections. They tamper with nuclear energies, launch machines into space, and speak of forging alliances beyond their home planet. Their thirst for knowledge, although admirable, might soon become a danger." An elderly Celestian to Veyer's right, Elder Mizora, bent forward in her seat. Her robe glimmered under the overhead orbs. "To watch them from afar, that has been our policy for centuries. But curiosity and caution alone will no longer suffice. We must decide whether to intervene or to safeguard them by other means." Elder Veyer nodded, his eyes closing for the briefest moment. "Yes, we must decide. But any intervention could put our own existence at risk. Humanity, unpredictable as it is, has shown a capacity for both wonder and destruction. The question is whether they can be guided or if they should be constrained." "Constrained?" came a voice from the far end of the half-circle. It belonged to Elder Arian, the youngest among them. "That suggests violence, or at least oppression. We are not conquerors." Elder Veyer spoke slowly, weighing each word. "Let us be clear, we do not advocate conquest. Yet prudence demands we make certain Earth does not become a threat to us or to themselves. We must learn if they are truly ready for cosmic awareness, or if their warring nature remains insurmountable." A trembling hush fell as the council deliberated in silent communion, each elder opening their mind to the swirling energies of the place, exchanging telepathic echoes that only Celestians could sense. Finally, it was decided. An elite operative would be sent to Earth, not to spy in secrecy, but to perform a thorough assessment, to live briefly among humans, and to glean whether the planet was ready for peaceful cosmic integration. Elder Mizora lifted her voice, calm but resolute. "I nominate Sienna Kaelor, our top operative. She has both the discipline and the curiosity to observe without bias." No one objected. Sienna Kaelor had proven herself countless times across the galaxy, from the desert plains of Aridia to the watery realms of Morthal. Where others faltered, she excelled in forging temporary alliances, bridging cultural gaps, and returning with knowledge that shaped the Council's grand strategy. To send her was logical, almost inevitable. Thus, the Council's decision was sealed. In a single unified motion, they passed the verdict. Sienna would depart for Earth, with the authority to determine whether humanity deserved protection or whether more drastic measures were required. Sienna Kaelor stepped onto the departure platform the next day, her silver skin reflecting the glow of luminous panels overhead. Long, moon-white hair framed her face, and her eyes, a deep amethyst hue, shone with measured confidence. She was of average build, but carried herself with the calm poise of someone who had trained every day of her life for the mission at hand. A small group of technicians rushed about, ensuring her starcraft was ready. Sienna's mother, an artist known for her cosmic tapestries, stood quietly nearby. "Take care, Sienna," she whispered, voice trembling with maternal worry. "The humans, they are known to be volatile. Keep your wits about you." Sienna nodded, placing a comforting hand on her mother's shoulder. "I will, mother. But remember, they are also known for compassion and creativity. I have studied their culture. Perhaps we will find something worthwhile." Her mother managed a faint smile. "Go. Show them who we are." With that, Sienna turned and strode into the starcraft. The door sealed behind her with a gentle hiss, and the vessel hummed to life. She settled into the pilot's seat, feeling the engine's subtle vibration, the gently thrumming power that would carry her across light years of space. Her heart pounded with anticipation, for though she was no stranger to clandestine missions, Earth was a place she had only read about in archived records. This time, however, it would be real. She would step onto city streets, talk to real humans, and discover whether this species, so renowned for innovation yet equally infamous for destruction, could join the cosmic tapestry peacefully. As the starcraft rose from the platform, Sienna took one last look at the Celestian capital through the front viewport. Gleaming spires touched the sky, woven with advanced technology that almost appeared natural. She breathed in deeply, then guided the craft upward, out of the city, and into the star-strewn expanse beyond. Minutes later, she engaged the faster-than-light drives, and the entire universe seemed to stretch. In that scintillating moment, she silently vowed to remain objective, no matter what she found on Earth. When Sienna emerged from light speed, the starcraft glided smoothly into orbit around the small blue planet. Earth appeared before her as a mesmerizing swirl of oceans and continents, ringed by wisps of clouds. The data screens glowed with readouts: Earth's gravitational pull, atmospheric composition, population density. She knew the Council had chosen New York City for her initial infiltration, an international hub brimming with art, finance, technology, and the eclectic tapestry of humanity. Breathing slowly, she keyed in the coordinates. The starcraft, cloaked in advanced Celestian camouflage, descended through the planet's atmosphere. Flames licked at the protective shields, but it was merely routine for a vessel as advanced as hers. Her mission: to blend seamlessly, to observe, and to assess. She had been provided with a specialized suit that would alter her outward appearance, transforming her silver skin into a more human-like texture, shifting her hair color from moon white to a subdued black, and masking the glow of her amethyst eyes. Touchdown occurred just past midnight in a secluded patch of forest an hour outside the city. Through the front viewport, she saw the shadows of towering trees, their tops swaying in a cool night breeze. Deactivating the cloaking, she initiated the final phase, the transformation. A subtle shimmer passed across her body. The advanced garment took hold, calibrating her biometrics to approximate a human female in her late 20s, with pale skin, dark hair, and brown eyes. The sensation was disorienting. She touched a hand to her cheek, marveling at how different her skin looked now, how the lustrous silver hue was gone, replaced by a softer, flesh-toned surface. Even her fingernails felt slightly thicker, more opaque. This would be her identity: Sienna Kaelor, an art enthusiast from a distant state. She had forged identification documents to back up this persona, courtesy of the Council's Intelligence Division. With a final glance at her starcraft's concealed shape, she set out on foot, following a dirt path that would lead her to the nearest roadway, where she hoped to find transportation into the city. She had rehearsed her backstory meticulously. She was prepared to drop references to a small hometown near the Canadian border, to speak of a fascination with Earth's cultural phenomena, especially music and city life. She was determined to play the part flawlessly. But something else churned inside her: a deep curiosity, a desire to experience humans not just as objects of study, but as individuals with hearts and dreams. If Earth was truly to be guided, or saved, or spared, she wanted to understand it from the inside. Her heart thumped as she walked, each step a faint whisper over grass damp with dew. Stars hung bright overhead, unhidden by the city's glow at this distance. She breathed in Earth's air, rich with oxygen, tinged with the scent of pine needles, and, just for an instant, she wondered if this place might charm her more than she expected. She arrived in New York City by early afternoon, riding in a shared taxi that carried travelers from the rural outskirts. The city's skyline rose before her in a crescendo of glass and steel. It was exhilarating, seeing the vibrant chaos, hearing the horns and sirens, smelling the street vendors' food carts lined along sidewalks. Waves of humanity rolled past, couples holding hands, business professionals hustling with briefcases, artists displaying their paintings on the corner. The sheer diversity was overwhelming, an endless tapestry of faces, voices, and stories. Sienna found a small, modest hotel in Midtown, one that did not ask too many questions. She checked in as Sienna Kaelor, paying in cash. Once in her room, she leaned against the door, exhaling. Her heart pounded with anticipation. She had gleaned from research that New York was an ideal vantage point for Earth's cultural examination. Everything was here: technology, commerce, arts, subcultures, and the chaotic interplay of different nationalities. After a brief rest, she stepped back out onto the bustling street. She wished to acquaint herself with human customs, to taste the food she had read about. Her Celestian physiology, while adapted for cosmic travel, still allowed her to savor the local cuisine. She found an unassuming cafe, slid into a small table by the window, and ordered a coffee, black. One sip, and her senses exploded with a bitterness she had never experienced. However, beneath that tang lay a rich complexity that teased her palate. Surprised, she took another sip, letting the aroma envelop her. Observing those around her, she noticed how humans interacted. The casual laughter, the flirtatious glances, the spats over minor misunderstandings, the eye-rolling, and the sincere apologies. The energy was electric, raw, and unpolished. She sipped her coffee again, an odd warmth blooming in her chest that was not solely from the drink. She exited the cafe in the late afternoon, meandering through city blocks, letting the neon signs guide her as twilight approached. It was then she stumbled across a small bar tucked away off a side street. She hesitated, peering through the window. She saw a few patrons perched on stools, the interior softly lit by old-fashioned lamps. A wooden sign above the door read, "Wilder's Haven." Thinking this might be another avenue of cultural exploration, she stepped inside. The bar was cozy, with polished wooden floors and shelves lined with bottles of every shape and hue. Behind the counter stood a man whose broad shoulders and easy stance immediately drew her eye. He was mixing a cocktail with practiced finesse, flipping bottles, pouring liquors, and blending ingredients into a tall glass. His sandy brown hair caught the overhead light, and his focused expression melted into a welcoming grin when he noticed her. "Hey there," he called out, placing the newly mixed drink in front of a customer. "Come on in. I'm Hank Wilder, and this here is my bar. Grab any seat you like." She slipped onto a stool near the corner of the bar, noting the warm lighting that made the place feel inviting. Hank approached with a friendly smile. "What can I get you?" Sienna paused. She had read about cocktails, yet had never tasted one. "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted, her voice quiet. "Surprise me." A playful look glinted in Hank's eyes. "We've got a brave soul here." He glanced at her attire. Simple, somewhat conservative, and seemed to size up her mood. "How about something with a little sweet, a little spice? A signature creation, if you will?" She nodded, offering a small, experimental smile. "Yes, I'd like that." He set to work, selecting various liquids with swift, practiced movements. He measured and poured, adding a dash of fresh lime, a swirl of simple syrup, and a dusting of spices she did not recognize. He gave the concoction a vigorous shake, straining it into a chilled glass, then garnished it with a slender citrus peel. Placing it before her, he inclined his head. "Wilder's Secret. Let's see if it passes the test." Curious, she lifted the glass to her lips. The first taste was a revelation. Cool, sweet, but carrying a slight bite that tingled on her tongue. She closed her eyes, savoring the complexity. For a Celestian, used to the curated flavors of her home world, this burst of layered taste was almost transformative. She felt her pulse quicken. A flush climbed her neck. Never had a mere drink evoked such a visceral reaction. "That's remarkable," she managed, her voice trembling just enough for Hank to raise an eyebrow. "Remarkable, huh?" he said, leaning his elbows on the bar. "Coming from a refined lady like you, I'll take that as high praise." She took another sip, marveling at how the flavors seemed to deepen with each taste. "Thank you. It is very good." Hank gave her a charismatic grin and returned to serving another customer. Meanwhile, Sienna lost herself in the swirl of sensations. Music drifting from hidden speakers, the glow of lights reflecting off rows of colored bottles, the hushed conversations from patrons around her, and the lingering aroma of strong spirits. Though she did not realize it then, that very moment, savoring a drink named Wilder's Secret, would set in motion a sequence of events no Celestian, not even the High Council, could have foreseen. She returned to Wilder's Haven the next evening, intrigued by her own reaction to human beverages and by a subtle desire to see the amiable bartender again. The bar was livelier tonight. Students, office workers, and travelers filtered in, each seeking respite from the city's unrelenting pace. Hank spotted her immediately, a genuine light sparking in his gaze. "You came back," he said, sliding a coaster across the bar. "Can't say I'm surprised. New York nights have a way of bringing folks in for a good cocktail." Sienna offered a tentative smile, feeling more at ease than she expected. "I'd like to try something different," she said softly. "Surprise me again." "Oh, we have an adventurer on our hands," Hank teased, winking. She watched him with growing fascination as he poured from various decanters, sprinkled in bright liqueurs, and tossed in fresh herbs. His skill was mesmerizing, and it struck her that humans poured so much creativity and soul into their crafts. As he worked, she picked up snippets of conversation from the patrons around her, hearing about their joys and troubles, heartbreaks and triumphs. The raw humanity of it stirred something deep within her. When Hank placed the new cocktail before her, he offered a mock bow. "I present a variation of the classic mint fizz. Let's see if you can handle its refreshing bite." She took a cautious sip, eyes widening at the burst of mint, citrus, and effervescence. The subtle tingle made her heart flutter. She smiled, genuinely, fully, for the first time since arriving on Earth. "It's lovely." He nodded in satisfaction, then leaned closer. "So, are you visiting New York, or here to stay?" "You've got the wide-eyed wonder of someone who just got off the boat." Sienna nearly choked on the last sip. She had rehearsed this. "I just moved here, actually. From up north." She dipped her head, hoping to conceal any flicker of nervousness. "I work remotely, so I thought I'd try the city for a while." Hank appraised her for a moment, then broke into a grin. "That's fantastic. In my experience, the city changes people, mostly for the better, though I've seen exceptions. Anyway, let me know if you need any tips on local hangouts or good eats." Sienna thanked him. Inside, her mind churned with the strangeness of it all. She, a Celestian operative, was forging a connection, no matter how slight, to an Earth bartender. She took in the lines of his face, the sincerity in his gaze, and an odd flicker of warmth began to kindle in her chest. She forced her attention back to her surroundings, reminding herself that she was on a mission. Distractions were dangerous. Yet, the entire premise of her assignment was to immerse herself, to learn from humans directly. If she remained aloof, she'd only glean a surface understanding. At least that was what she told herself as she savored the refreshing drink, occasionally meeting Hank's gaze across the bar. When night deepened, she left with a polite nod. The brisk air outside woke her from the dreamlike lull that had enveloped her within the bar. City lights glowed overhead, and car horns punctuated the restless hum of nightlife. She walked back to her hotel, half-dazed, her mind dancing with a multitude of new sensations. She still had to compile her daily report for the council. Though coded transmissions to Celestia were discreet, she could not fail in her updates. Yet, as she stepped into her room, she realized that her calm, detached observation was slowly giving way to genuine intrigue. She reminded herself that she must remain vigilant. In the days that followed, Sienna explored the city, visited museums, mingled in parks, and ate street food, an experience that, by Celestian standards, was bizarrely tantalizing. Hot dogs laden with onions, pretzels dusted with salt, mysterious fusion dishes that melded flavors from every corner of Earth. She discovered a hidden vibrancy in the city's subways, watched street performers breakdance for spare change, and marveled at the resilience of those who scraped by. Even the city's imperfections, the pungent trash on certain streets, the cramped apartments, spoke to a gritty, unyielding spirit that both fascinated and unsettled her. All the while, she reported her findings to the council, describing humanity's capacity for creativity and kindness, but also their capacity for chaos and aggression. The daily transmissions were brief, just enough to keep the elders updated, though she found herself omitting certain personal details, like her growing fondness for Hank Wilder's cocktails, or how she had begun to notice the subtle shifts in his expression, the gentle timbre of his laughter. One evening, while returning to her hotel after a hurried dinner, she heard a commotion in an alley. A youth had been accosted by a group of hooligans, pinned against a wall. The youth's cries were muffled by the bully's shouts. In a split second, Sienna found herself dashing forward, guided by an instinct that overshadowed her mission protocols. She slid between them, eyes blazing with the fierce discipline of her Celestian combat training. Without her usual caution, she disarmed one thug by twisting his wrist, sending him tumbling. The others gawked, uncertain how this seemingly slender woman had so deftly disarmed a man twice her size. "Leave," she commanded, her voice cold and resonant. The men muttered curses but backed away. The youth, trembling, thanked her breathlessly. Before any authorities arrived, she fled, heart pounding. She realized how close she had come to revealing her abilities. That night, as she typed her report, her hands shook slightly. Should she mention the incident to the council? She decided against it, caution winning over honesty. Yet the memory lingered, and a part of her felt a surge of pride for intervening on behalf of a vulnerable stranger. This, she realized, was the paradox of humanity. Where there was brutality, there was also nobility in defending the innocent. The next night, she found herself drawn back to Wilder's Haven, more for the comfort of Hank's presence than for the cocktails. She took a seat at the end of the bar, quietly observing the merriment around her. Hank soon approached, noticing a trace of tension in her eyes. "Long day?" he asked gently, leaning on the bar. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Sensing her mood, he prepared a concoction she hadn't seen before, a warm, honey-infused drink that carried a hint of cinnamon. As she sipped, a soothing calm spread through her limbs, and her racing thoughts quieted. "That's amazing," she finally whispered, gazing at him with gratitude. "I don't know how you do it." He shrugged with a modest grin. "I suppose mixology is part art, part empathy. Sometimes we just need a warm hug and a glass, you know?" She smiled, heart flickering. For a brief instant, her carefully orchestrated cover threatened to slip, and she felt the strangest longing to confide in him. But that, of course, was impossible. Instead, she thanked him with a faint blush, finishing her drink. His presence was unexpectedly reassuring, like a steady anchor in the roiling seas of her double life. Time passed quickly. Sienna's infiltration was meant to last weeks, but each day unfurled new layers of complexity. She attended gatherings where humans debated politics, others where they simply danced the night away in a blur of neon lights. Everywhere, she saw glimpses of cruelty and heartbreak, along with astonishing acts of kindness. The city was never one thing, it was 1,000 contradictory impulses swirling together. Her transmissions to the council became more nuanced, revealing a tapestry of virtues and flaws that defied a simple verdict. Meanwhile, her connection with Hank deepened. She often found herself at Wilder's Haven, sometimes volunteering to chop fruit in the back or restock shelves just for the chance to linger. Their conversations branched beyond casual pleasantries. They spoke of their childhoods, hers cleverly fabricated, his full of real detail, fishing trips with his grandfather, how he inherited the bar from an uncle who believed in him despite his wild younger days. He had once dreamed of traveling the world, yet found a peculiar peace running his little oasis of cocktails and conversation. She found his sincerity disarming, his laughter contagious, and his compassion for strangers genuinely moving. Still, she tried to keep boundaries. Late one night, after the bar closed, they found themselves alone, wiping down tables under the warm glow of a single lamp. A comfortable silence settled in, broken only by the rustle of a rag over wood. Then Hank spoke, his voice low. "I don't want to pry, Sienna, but I can tell there's something different about you." She froze, forcing her grip on the rag to remain steady. "Different," she echoed, her throat tightening. He laid his rag down, leaning against the bar. His gaze was gentle, unaccusing. "You talk like someone who's never been here before, but you don't act lost, either. You mention places, but I never hear you talk about friends or family. I just worry that maybe you're running from something." She forced a laugh, albeit a bit stiff. "Running from a past life, perhaps. Does that bother you?" He shook his head, sincerity shining in his eyes. "Not at all. I just want you to be okay. You strike me as someone who shoulders a heavy burden alone." She looked away, heart pounding in a mix of guilt and unexpected gratitude. "You're too kind. But I'll be fine, I promise." She turned to gather her jacket, hoping to quell any further questions. Yet inside, a warmth spread through her at the realization that he cared enough to notice her troubles. The tension broke when he offered a gentle smile. "Well, if you ever need someone to talk to, you know where to find me. And hey," he added, with a playful glint in his eye, "the drinks are on the house for you. You're practically part of the bar now." She gave a final nod, stepping out into the cool night air. As she walked to her hotel, she felt her carefully woven composure unraveling bit by bit. Hank's concern touched a chord within her, and she found herself torn between loyalty to her mission and the blossoming feelings she could no longer deny. Was it loneliness, or was it something deeper? One evening, an event occurred that would change the trajectory of her entire mission. She had come to the bar late, near closing, exhausted from a day of intense observation and clandestine communication with her StarCraft's AI. The bar was nearly empty, just a handful of stragglers finishing their last drinks. Hank greeted her with a warm smile, but he could sense her tension. She slipped onto a stool, acknowledging him with a small nod. "What is it tonight?" he asked quietly, leaning forward. "I want to experience something new," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something comforting, yet exciting." His eyes sparkled. "Say no more." He took a polished mixing glass and began selecting ingredients, some of which Sienna recognized from her prior visits, and some entirely novel. He added a rare liqueur that glinted gold in the low light, a dash of a smoky spirit, then squeezed fresh juice from a peculiar fruit she had never seen. She watched with growing intrigue. Could the subtle intricacies of taste truly reflect the complexities of the human heart? He poured the drink into a tulip-shaped glass, topping it with foam whisk from egg whites, tinted by swirling drops of bitters. He set it before her with a quiet air of ceremony, as though presenting a masterpiece. "Taste it slowly," he advised. "The flavors evolve over time." Her fingertips brushed the cool glass. She lifted it to her lips, inhaling a fragrant aroma that reminded her of starlit nights and autumn leaves. She took one tentative sip. A cascade of flavors, sweet, bitter, smoky, citrusy, unfolded on her tongue, weaving into an exquisite harmony. The sensation was almost overwhelming. She closed her eyes, a soft moan escaping her lips. In that moment, something profound occurred. Deep within her Celestian physiology, an ancient sequence activated, something her species called the convergence of the senses, a phenomenon that triggered whenever a Celestian's heightened perception locked onto a potent, life-altering stimulus. It was rare, typically reserved for intimate bonding rituals on her home planet. A sudden wave of warmth coursed through her body, pricking her arms with goosebumps. She gasped, nearly dropping the glass, as an electric current seemed to spark between her and Hank. There was no visible light, no dramatic thunderclap, yet she knew, with chilling certainty, that something fundamental had changed within her. Hank noticed her reaction. "You okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. She nodded frantically, swallowing hard. Yes. Just felt a bit dizzy." But it was not simple dizziness. In Celestian lore, the phenomenon was described as a bonding resonance, a moment when a Celestian soul tethered itself to another being, forging a link that transcended mere affection. She had never expected it could be triggered by something as mundane as a cocktail. Yet here she was, senses spinning, her entire being vibrating with an energy that resonated with Hank's presence. Trying to regain composure, she forced a trembling smile. "It's strong, but delicious." He exhaled a sigh of relief, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. The touch sent a small jolt through her system, further confirming what had occurred. Beneath the artificial shell her suit provided, beneath the human facade, her Celestian essence recognized him as a bonded partner, an outcome she had never sought, nor even believed possible with a non-Celestian. "I'm glad," Hank said, smiling gently. "I wanted to create something unique, something that might capture you." He pulled in her cheeks. Uncertain what to do, she quietly finished the drink, every sip both ecstatic and terrifying. By the time she set the glass down, the bar was nearly empty, last calls had been given, and Hank was ushering out the final patrons. He locked the door, casting them into a comfortable isolation. Overhead, the soft bar lights haloed around him, making him seem almost luminescent. With shaking hands, she reached for her coat, desperate to escape before the bond escalated. Her mind raced with warnings. Celestian bonding was for life, an irrevocable connection. Engaging in such a relationship with a human, especially in secret, could incur dire consequences. She had read about the old rituals, two Celestians standing beneath starlight, exchanging symbolic tokens. Yet there had been no tokens here, just a drink shared in a dimly lit bar. How had it come to this? She turned abruptly, nearly stumbling. Hank reached out to steady her. "Hey, easy. Let me call you a cab." Her eyes flickered to his, and in that lingering gaze, she felt the bond pulsate. She realized, with a rush of conflicting emotions, that from a Celestian standpoint, he had effectively claimed her, even though he had no idea what he had done. It was an impossible situation, yet for a brief second, her heart soared. She had never felt so alive. "And no, I'm fine. I just need some fresh air," she stammered. "I'll walk." He studied her, concern etched on his brow, but relented. "All right. Just be safe out there." She managed to nod. Without another word, she fled into the cool night, the city lights swirling around her in a kaleidoscope of sensation. All the training, all the discipline, disintegrated under the weight of what had just transpired. The bond was real, and it now bound her to Hank Wilder, a human who possessed no inkling of the cosmic link they shared. In my culture, she whispered to the empty street, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Bonding is for life, and you just claimed me. She spent the next day in turmoil. Her entire being buzzed with the half-formed psychic link, her senses heightened to an excruciating degree. She could almost feel Hank's distant presence, like a faint warmth tugging at the edges of her consciousness. Fear gripped her. What if the council found out? They might order her immediate extraction, or worse, they might label her compromised and send Celestian enforcers to terminate her for breaking protocol. But the bond, once established, was no small matter. Celestian biology was ancient, its traditions older than their starfaring ways. A forced severance could lead to madness, or even death. She had studied these rare cases in the archives, tragedies that read like cautionary tales. Yet never had she encountered a story of bonding between a Celestian and a human. She tried to immerse herself in mission tasks, but her mind wandered. She attempted to send a coded update to the council, only to realize she couldn't bring herself to mention the incident. Fear, shame, and a curious warmth stayed her hand. After hours of anguish, she convinced herself that she needed more time to think. Perhaps she could glean a solution if she remained calm. That night, she found herself walking through the city's labyrinthine streets, uncertain if she could bear seeing Hank again, equally uncertain if she could stay away. Eventually, she arrived near Wilder's Haven. The sign glowed softly. Her heart clenched. Could she pretend nothing had changed? Could she even look him in the eye without her newly heightened senses betraying her? Swallowing hard, she pushed the door open. The usual dim glow greeted her, along with the murmur of conversation and clink of glassware. Hank was at the bar, talking with a pair of regulars. The moment he saw her, his face lit up with a warmth that sent her heart racing. She took a seat, trying to breathe normally. "You look better tonight," he observed, sliding a coaster toward her. "Feeling all right?" She gave a tentative nod. "Yes, thank you. Sorry if I worried you last time. I wasn't feeling well." He studied her, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "I'm glad you're here." Then, lowering his voice, he added, "I'm planning a new signature cocktail event soon. I might need your taste-testing skills, if you're up for it." The corners of her lips tugged upward in an involuntary smile, despite the turmoil within. "I'd love to help," she managed. As the night wore on, she sipped a milder drink he prepared, carefully monitoring her reactions. She felt a soft hum of energy whenever she made contact with him, a brush of hands as he passed a glass, the exchange of glances that lingered too long. Yet it was surprisingly manageable, as though her Celestian biology had accepted the bond and was now attempting to harmonize with it. She left that night with her mind in a swirl of renewed questions. The bond was there, undeniably, but perhaps they could continue as they were, without cataclysmic consequences, at least until she figured out how to handle the formalities. The comforting notion helped her sleep, albeit fitfully. Sienna awoke to a dreadful sensation that morning, her skin tingling in warning. She recognized it instantly as a psychic ripple, a resonance from distant Celestian minds. Leaping out of bed, she checked her hidden communicator. An urgent message blinked at her in Celestian script. Operative Sienna Kaelor. Your status has been flagged for irregularities. The Council demands immediate updates. Failure to comply may result in enforcement protocol. Her stomach twisted. They suspected her of deviating. She had been so engrossed in her personal turmoil, she had neglected thorough reporting. Now the Council, never one to overlook anomalies, was pressing for explanations. Worse, they might already suspect her bonding with a human, though she doubted they had proof of that yet. Her fingers trembled over the device. She managed to craft a response, carefully composed. Esteemed Council, I apologize for the delay. I have been conducting field research. Earth's cultures are nuanced, requiring extensive observation. I will provide a comprehensive report within one planetary cycle. Sending the message, she closed her eyes, praying it would buy her time. If the Council truly believed she was compromised, they would dispatch enforcers, elite Celestians trained to eliminate all threats to their mission. That possibility sent a chill through her. She could handle them, perhaps, but what about Hank, or the innocent humans around them? She threw on clothes and hurried outside. She needed to check her Starcraft's systems, ensure her cloaking remained stable, and confirm the area was still secure. She took a bus to the rural outskirts, then walked the rest of the way through the forest to the hidden clearing. Her heart sank. The area looked untouched, but her starcraft was humming with urgent warnings. The main console displayed data indicating that Celestian signals had scanned Earth's orbit recently, searching for her ship. "This is happening too soon," she whispered, pressing her palms to her temples. She scanned the starcraft's systems for any sign of infiltration. Thankfully, it remained concealed. However, the software flagged unauthorized attempts to tap into her transmissions, almost certainly Celestian watchers. She cursed softly in her native tongue. Time was running out. She returned to the city under a veil of mounting dread. That evening, she met Hank again, but her smiles came with forced cheer. He noticed, but said nothing, respecting her silence. She lingered in Wilder's haven until closing, neither wanting to be alone nor daring to confide in him. The bond thrummed gently between them, offering a strange comfort amidst the rising tension. A few nights later, the inevitable occurred. Sienna was locking up after helping Hank close the bar. He had entrusted her with a spare key to straighten up if he had to step out. She was alone in the dimly lit interior when she sensed a powerful, familiar presence. She spun around to see two figures, silver-skinned, with eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Celestians. Enforcers. They had deactivated their camouflage suits, revealing their true forms. Terror mingled with anger. She recognized them from the Council's protective forces. Tall, imposing, each one stood with a stillness that radiated lethal potential. The nearest, a female enforcer with short-cropped hair, stepped forward. "Sienna Kaelor," she said coldly. "You have deviated from your mission. The Council has ordered us to assess your condition, and, if necessary, carry out sentence." Sienna swallowed. "I'm fulfilling my mission. Why would the Council send you?" The male enforcer sneered. "Reports indicate your transmissions lack detail, and your behavior patterns triggered suspicion. Enough talk. You will accompany us." Adrenaline surged in Sienna's veins. The thought of Hank, of the bond, flashed through her mind. She sensed these enforcers would not hesitate to harm innocents if they believed it necessary. Bracing herself, she adopted a defensive stance. The female enforcer's lip curled. "Don't resist, Sienna. The Council knows best." "Perhaps," Sienna shot back, "but I have vital data to present. You'll regret any precipitous action." In a blur, the male enforcer lunged, aiming a stun device at her chest. She dodged, agile from her long years of training, weaving behind the bar as glassware shattered around them. Her mind spun with possible escape routes. The bar's layout was fixed in her memory. Exit at the front, emergency door in the back hallway. Could she disable them without drawing attention from the street? The female enforcer circled, forcing Sienna away from the front door. "You can't run forever," she hissed. Sienna pivoted, grabbing a wooden stool to block a strike. She directed a precise kick at the male enforcer's wrist, sending the stun device clattering to the floor. He growled, swinging a backhand that grazed her shoulder, pain flaring through her. With a desperate burst of energy, she launched herself over the bar counter, crashing onto the other side in a flurry of broken bottles and sticky liquor. Outside, she heard a new voice, a shout of alarm. "Hank." Her heart plummeted. He must have seen or heard the commotion from the street. She prayed he wouldn't barge in, but the bar door slammed open, and in he rushed, eyes wide. "Sienna? What the hell is going on?" Before she could warn him away, the male enforcer turned on Hank, raising an energy pulse device. A single shot could kill a human. Sienna acted on instinct. She hurled herself at the enforcer, grabbing his arm and forcing it upward. The pulse fired into the ceiling, sending sparks raining down. Hank stumbled back, petrified by the sight of silver-skinned beings in swirling cosmic attire. The female enforcer seized the opportunity to strike Sienna from behind, hooking an arm around her neck. "Yield," she snarled. Hank, eyes flicking with confusion, snatched a bottle from the bar and cracked it over the enforcer's head. She reeled, loosening her grip. Sienna gasped for air, grateful for Hank's intervention. The male enforcer, regaining his balance, charged at them, but Sienna delivered a swift blow to his midsection, sending him sprawling across the table. At that moment, the female enforcer rose, energy swirling around her palm. She aimed it at Hank, who stood behind Sienna, chest heaving with adrenaline. Time seemed to slow. Sienna felt the bond between them surge, spurred by her desperation to protect him. Without hesitation, she mustered the Celestian energy she rarely displayed. A shimmering field of pale violet light blossomed around her hand. She released a telekinetic blast that slammed the enforcer into a wall, stunning her into unconsciousness. Hank stood frozen, jaw slack, as the violet energy dissipated from Sienna's hand. The bar fell into an eerie hush, broken only by the quiet groans of the wounded male enforcer. "Sienna, what?" Hank choked, words tumbling out. "What are you?" She turned to him, tears forming in her eyes. "I can explain." But there was no time. The male enforcer was stirring. She reached for Hank's wrist. "We have to go, now." She led him outside, into the neon-lit street. They ran, hearts pounding, weaving through alleys to evade any watchers. At last, they stumbled into an empty lot. She doubled over, gasping for breath, while Hank stared at her, eyes demanding answers. "Who are those people?" he rasped. "And how did you do that thing with your hand?" Sienna forced herself to speak. "They're from where I'm from. I'm not from around here." Hank could only stare. "You're an alien?" A trembling laugh escaped him. "I can't believe I'm saying that." She wanted to say more, but the weight of the bond, the danger, and the swirling fear overwhelmed her. Tears stung her eyes. "I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. My people sent me to observe Earth, and now they think I'm compromised. They'll come after me, and maybe after you, because of something that happened." "What happened?" he asked breathlessly, stepping closer. She bit her lip, hesitating. But truth was now her only refuge. "In my culture, bonding is for life, and you just claimed me, Hank. The drink you made, it triggered an ancient Celestian bonding ritual. We are connected now." He stared at her, disbelief warring with the concern in his eyes. "That's insane. But I can't deny something weird is going on, and I do care about you. If what you say is true, then we need to figure this out." Relief and terror jostled in her chest. She took his hand, feeling the pulsing tether of the bond. "Then we run, at least for now. I have to gather evidence to convince the Council that Earth shouldn't be harmed, that you shouldn't be harmed. If they deem me a traitor, they could take drastic measures, like wiping out the planet's technology or isolating it entirely. I can't let that happen." Hank gave a single nod, determination flaring behind his eyes. "Then let's do this together." So it was that they fled into the night. Hank stuffed a duffel bag with essentials from his apartment, while Sienna kept watch, scanning for Celestian signals. The city that had once felt like a playground of delights now resembled a shadowy labyrinth, fraught with danger. They slipped onto trains at odd hours, changed cabs, always looking over their shoulders for signs of pursuit. In stolen moments, Sienna tried to explain Celestian culture to Hank, the High Council, their cosmic technology, their mission of watchful observation. She revealed that if the Council believed Earth to be a threat, they might initiate containment, an approach that ranged from covert sabotage of Earth's progress to orchestrating political chaos. If truly threatened, they might even sanction large-scale destruction, though that was considered a last resort. Hank listened in stunned silence, occasionally shaking his head as though to clear a nightmare. Meanwhile, he asked about the bond. "So we're basically married, by your people's standards?" He tried to inject a light tone, but Sienna heard the tremor beneath it. She blushed, looking away. "It's more profound than marriage. It's a psychic link that grows stronger over time. Once formed, it's nearly unbreakable. But it was an accident. Hey," he said softly, touching her arm. "It's okay. It's a lot to process, but I'm not running away. Not from you." Tears burned at the edges of her eyes. "I never wanted to drag you into this." His gaze softened. "I might not understand everything, but I know you're a good person. That's enough for me." In those quiet moments, amid the frantic need to stay one step ahead of Celestian enforcers, a tender closeness blossomed. The bond hummed whenever they touched, amplifying their emotions. On one level, it felt dangerously fast, an intimacy forged by cosmic forces rather than choice. Yet on another, it felt strangely right, as if the universe had orchestrated a convergence of two souls who might never have met otherwise. Days turned into a blur of narrow escapes. They hopped a bus to a distant state, hiding in motels under false names. Sienna used what meager Celestian resources she could discreetly tap from her starcraft's hidden location, hacking Earth systems to create credible identities. Still, they couldn't hide forever. The enforcers were thorough, and with each passing day, Sienna's communicator buzzed with more urgent messages. Come in immediately, or face consequences. She knew they would eventually track her starcraft. That forced her hand. Late one evening, she led Hank back to the forest site. The starcraft's hull shimmered beneath the moonlight, protective camouflage flickering. Hank's eyes widened in awe. "This is your ride?" She nodded grimly, pressing her palm to the hull. "We can use it to contact the Council, show them that Earth is worth preserving. I have data from my observations, records of human culture, acts of kindness, artistic expressions. If I can present that evidence, maybe I can negotiate a peaceful resolution." Hank squeezed her hand. I'll stand by you. They boarded the craft, the interior glowing with soft, ambient light. Sienna activated the communication console, her pulse hammering. This is Operative Sienna Kaelor, requesting emergency contact with the High Council. Silence at first. Then the console crackled, revealing the stern visage of Elder Veyer. His silver skin glistened with an air of authority, and his opalescent eyes were unreadable. Sienna Kaelor, you have flagrantly disobeyed protocol, assaulted enforcers, and compromised your mission by revealing yourself to a human. He paused, letting the condemnation weigh heavily. Explain yourself. Sienna swallowed hard. Elder Veyer, Earth is more complex than our data suggested. Yes, they have destructive tendencies, but their capacity for innovation, compassion, and beauty is remarkable. I believe they can be guided toward peaceful cosmic integration if we give them time. Veyer's gaze flicked to Hank, who stood resolute by Sienna's side. And this human, you have formed a bond with him? Her voice quivered. It was unintentional, but it is real. The bond compels me to protect him, and I want to, beyond the bond itself. I asked the Council to spare him, and to spare humanity. Please, I have compiled extensive evidence, cultural achievements, philanthropic endeavors, inter-community solidarity. She tapped a screen, transmitting a massive archive of videos, audio clips, and personal accounts she had gathered over her weeks in the city. Hank watched in silence, placing his trust fully in her. The data would speak for itself. Scenes of doctors healing the sick, volunteers feeding the homeless, artists painting murals of hope, families uniting across cultural divides, protesters standing up against injustice. A kaleidoscope of humanity's potential for good, overshadowing the darkness that often made headlines. Elder Veyer studied the feed, though his expression remained cool. It is not solely my decision, Sienna. The entire council must deliberate. Sienna pressed her hands together. Please, Elder, let me speak to the council. A tense moment followed, and for a heartbeat, she feared the elder would refuse. Then he inclined his head. We will convene an emergency session. Remain where you are. The transmission cut. Sienna sagged against the console, exhaling shakily. Hank placed a hand on her shoulder. We did our best. She nodded, tears burning her eyes. I just hope it's enough. They waited through the night, uncertain whether the council would respond with a swarm of enforcers or an offer of dialogue. They huddled inside the Starcraft's dimly lit cabin, listening to the wind rustle the forest outside. Sienna's mind spun with possibilities. Could she reason with the council, or would they declare her a traitor? Would they brand Earth a threat, launching a preemptive strike? The tension was almost unbearable. Dawn broke, pale rays filtering through the canopy, when the console crackled again. This time, the entire High Council appeared in holographic form, 12 elders around a circular table. Sienna stood up straight, Hank at her side, his hand quietly finding hers for support. Elder Mizora spoke first, her tone grave but not unkind. Operative Sienna Kaelor, we have reviewed your evidence. We see the multifaceted nature of humanity and the intricacies of your experiences on Earth. The Council has found merit in your claim that Earth exhibits extraordinary cultural value. Another elder, eyes shining with cosmic wisdom, added, however, your personal entanglement with a human complicates matters. You have violated fundamental infiltration protocols. Sienna's voice trembled, but she forced steadiness. Yes, I did. I take full responsibility. But I urge you not to punish Earth for my error. Judge me, if you must. Earth has potential that should not be extinguished. Elder Veyer's gaze was stern. The Council has debated through the night. Many of us believe Earth's rapid technological ascent poses risks, not just to themselves, but to the stability of the quadrant. However, your data also reveals an undeniable capacity for growth and unity. We are at an impasse. Elder Arian, the youngest, spoke up. If Earth's future is uncertain, perhaps we can protect it as we do with other developing worlds. A non-interference pact, combined with cosmic guidance under strict observation. Elder Mizora inclined her head. Yes, we can declare Earth a protected cultural asset. That way, no aggressive measures can be taken, nor will we push them toward unearned cosmic awareness. They will develop in their own time, under watchful eyes. A flutter of hope bloomed in Sienna's chest. That is all I ask, for Earth to have a chance. Elder Veyer's gaze flicked to Hank. What of this human? By Celestian law, forming a permanent bond with a non-Celestian is unprecedented. It raises questions about lineage, about potential half-breeds, about the secrecy of our people. Hank swallowed, stepping forward despite his fear. I may not understand all your laws, but I care about Sienna. If she's part of your society, you have to know she's an incredible person. I won't stand in her way. Whatever we decide, I accept the bond." A ripple of murmurs passed through the elders. Elder Vair's eyes narrowed. Then he spoke in a measured tone. "This council rarely grants exceptions. But if we allow you two to remain bound, it sets a precedent. Nevertheless, Sienna's service is well documented. She has risked her life for our missions before." Elder Mizora raised a hand. "Let it be known that Sienna Kaelor has, through her thorough analysis, saved Earth from potential devastation. Perhaps we owe her a chance at happiness." A hushed silence reigned as the council weighed the final decision. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then Elder Vair nodded solemnly. "Very well. By the council's decree, Earth shall be placed under protected status, and Sienna Kaelor shall be granted clemency for her protocol breach, so long as she remains our liaison to this planet. Hank Wilder, you are recognized as her bonded partner. You must respect Celestian customs and keep our existence confidential." Relief crashed over Sienna like a tidal wave. She bowed deeply, tears escaping her eyes. "Thank you, elders." Hank let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you," he echoed softly. Elder Vair inclined his head once more, his tone steeling. "Know that we will continue to watch Earth's development. If your bond causes harm, or if Earth deviates into dangerous territory, we may revisit our stance. Until then, preserve the peace." The holograms flickered out, leaving the cabin in silence. For a long moment, neither Sienna nor Hank moved. Then, with a trembling laugh, she turned to him, and in an impulsive rush, they embraced. Months of tension, fear, and unspoken devotion poured into that single hug, the bond between them humming like a cosmic lullaby. The moment was both surreal and deeply real, an interlacing of hearts across species. They emerged from the starcraft into the dewy morning light, hand in hand, uncertain of what the future held, but certain that Earth was safe for now. A few days later, they returned to New York City. Wilder's Haven, battered by the Enforcer's skirmish, needed repairs, but Hank's regulars volunteered time and resources to help rebuild. Sienna, no longer forced to hide entirely, adapted her infiltration suit to maintain a semi-human appearance. She still had to be discreet, but the knowledge that the council had sanctioned her relationship gave her some peace of mind. They settled into a new rhythm. Sienna remained a liaison, quietly sending cultural updates to the council, now with Hank's help. He introduced her to more human experiences, road trips to scenic national parks, outdoor music festivals where they danced under twinkling lights, intimate family gatherings with his distant relatives who embraced her as that sweet girl Hank's been seeing. She, in turn, gently shared glimpses of Celestian knowledge, helping him learn star patterns, revealing the wonders of cosmic phenomena, and describing her people's grand history with an odd reverence. Wilder's Haven reopened with an expanded menu of celestial-themed cocktails. Locals joked that Sienna was Hank's inspiration, naming drinks like Cosmic Kiss and Celestial Muse. Late at night, after closing, they would sit side by side, shoulders touching, sipping new concoctions in companionable silence. Sometimes he'd ask about her home world, what the skies looked like, how the cities glimmered with advanced technology. Other times, she asked about Earth's lesser-known wonders, from small farming towns to hidden beaches. They discovered that bridging two worlds was both challenging and deeply fulfilling, forging a bond that transcended the accidents of birth. And the bond itself, that cosmic tether, grew in subtle ways. Sometimes they'd feel each other's emotions with unsettling clarity, a rush of affection if one was thinking of the other, a pang of worry if one was in danger. Far from being an imposition, it became a cherished link, a silent conversation between two hearts that had found each other across light years of separation. Their relationship, forged amid danger, blossomed into a genuine, abiding love. The Celestian High Council, for its part, maintained a watchful eye, occasionally sending discreet envoys to check on Sienna's progress and ensure Earth's path remained stable. But they never again threatened to harm the planet or sever the bond. Over time, the Council began to acknowledge that Earth's exuberant creativity and dogged resilience might enrich not only humanity, but the entire cosmic community in ways they had not anticipated. One crisp autumn evening, with leaves swirling in the city breeze, Sienna and Hank found themselves on the bar's rooftop after closing. The stars overhead shone brightly, and the city's lights twinkled below. Sienna gazed at the constellations, recalling the Celestian archives that documented the same star patterns from a different vantage. Hank slipped an arm around her waist. "Penny for your thoughts?" She tilted her head, smiling at his warm presence. "Just thinking how incredible it is that we're here, together. A few months ago, I was an operative on a mission to decide Earth's fate. Now I'm living a life I never could have imagined. He pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. Life's funny like that. Sometimes it just mixes the right ingredients, and you get something unexpectedly beautiful. She laughed softly, remembering the night he had created that fateful drink. Unexpectedly beautiful indeed. Turning to face him, she brushed a stray strand of hair from his forehead. I love you, Hank Wilder, she whispered. He grinned, eyes bright. And I love you, Sienna Kaelor, the alien emissary, cocktail connoisseur, the best thing to happen to my bar and my life. Their lips met in a tender kiss, one that was both a promise and a celebration. Above them, the stars seemed to shimmer in approval. Below, the city hummed with the restless pulse of humanity, whose fate they had helped secure, at least for now. Tomorrow might bring new challenges, new cosmic questions, but in that moment, the universe felt miraculously whole. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, she rested her head on his shoulder, letting the bond between them speak volumes. Their story was just beginning, two souls linked by cosmic accident, forging a path of hope in a universe that could be as cold as it was wondrous. For a little while, though, they simply savored the quiet joy of knowing Earth was safe. The Council had granted them freedom, and love had triumphed over fear. Indeed, in her culture, bonding was for life. And though the path had been fraught with peril, the result was a union stronger than any starship's hull, bright as any celestial dawn. Their future stretched ahead like a horizon yet uncharted, brimming with promise and the certainty that together, they would face whatever wonders or dangers awaited them among the stars. And in the gentle glow of 1,000 city lights, under the vast cosmic tapestry, they found that happy ending was not just a point in time, but an ongoing embrace of possibility, sealed with a kiss that echoed through both worlds forever.